The unprecedented rescue of a soccer team in a flooded Thailand cave this summer captivated the world. And it led many people to wonder about their own safety. Experts say southern Indiana is one of the best places to cave, and for the most part, it's an extremely safe sport. But as Lindsay Wright reports, it requires preparation.
Imagine exploring a cave hundreds of feet below the Earth's surface, and somewhere along the way, your flashlight goes out. You don't have a backup. This is what you'd see. Not much. For many, this would induce panic. That's why Anmar Mirza says it's important to be prepared for any situation when venturing into a cave.
If you don't follow good, safe caving practices, they can be dangerous. But anybody going in with proper training for what they're going into and proper equipment and following the very basic caving rules, caving is incredibly safe.
Mirza is the national coordinator for the National Cave Rescue Commission, and he also manages the property where Buckner Cave sits. These folks are strapping on their knee pads and putting on their helmets as they prepare to crawl through the Bloomington Cave. It's one of thousands of caves that winds through the state, and it's where a group of caving hobbyists meets about once a week.
We use that opportunity to kind of see what our weekend visitors have done for the cave, make sure nobody's done any vandalism, but we also use it as a training ground for new people who want to get involved in caving.
Mirza says first, you should never go into a cave alone.
And be careful, it gets very slick.
Small groups are best. For a safe experience, cavers need some basic equipment. That includes knee pads, loose rugged clothing, shoes with ankle support, adequate amounts of light, and a helmet.
A helmet is very important because you're in a very small environment and you're going to hit your head a lot. And my caving helmet actually has some pretty deep grooves in it, which if I hadn't been wearing my helmet, would have probably been a skull fracture.
It's difficult to fully understand how important even this basic equipment is until you're in the trenches, so to speak. So we took a trip to Indiana Caverns in Corridon.
Inside your cave packs is for your snacks, water.
We're headed underground for the organization's Deep Darkness Tour. The mental and physical endurance is what sets it apart from other experiences.
And you always have someone on the surface who knows where you're going. Even for a deep darkness, we have people on the surface who know when we're going and where we're going.
This is not a leisurely hike. We descend down a 90-foot ladder, then strap ourselves in to scale a 100-foot slope. From there, Blevins leads the group as we trudge through thigh-high water, paddle across an underground river, and squeeze through tiny openings. She says tours like this one are a good way to get your feet wet with caving, literally. But they also make it abundantly clear why safety should be the first thing on any caver's mind. Blevins knows from experience that a caver has to be prepared for the unexpected. She was part of a group that ended up trapped for nearly 40 hours a couple years ago when the caves unexpectedly flooded. It wasn't just luck that no one ended up hurt. Rescuers got them out, but the group was prepared to wait for help.
There wasn't forecast for rain. When we went, we knew what we were doing. We had the proper equipment, food, water. We were all wearing wetsuits. We had the trash bags, the thermal blankets.
So there are serious risks when it comes to caving. But Mirza says of the thousands of people who go through Indiana's caves each year, typically only a couple result in rescues.
I've had something like 7,000 hours underground in my lifetime, and the worst injuries I've gotten are like a few bumps and bruises.
And that's because this is what a prepared caver looks like. Someone who's armed with the tools to navigate the unexpected. For Indiana News Desk, I'm Lindsay Wright.
Now, Becca Costello went with Lindsay into the cave, and she joins us now. Becca, wow, what was that like?
Joe, that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. It was just so physically and mentally exhausting to go through that cave, and pretty muddy, as you can see in the after photo. And I just don't think either of us had any idea what we could expect going into this. There were some tight spaces, there was a lot of water, and then we had all of this camera equipment that we had to carry around with us and keep that safe. And it was just incredibly tough.
So now, how has cavers thought, the way they think about safety, how has that changed over time?
Well, as you can imagine, technology has really made things a lot safer. Just think about light and how much a headlamp really illuminates things so much better than like a candle or a gas lamp. And speaking of technology, we actually had kind of an interesting experience where down in the cave we ran into somebody that we weren't expecting, and he was testing a technology that he thinks is going to actually help with cave rescue. So this is Trey Hinkey. He was crouched on the cave floor with a phone and this little device in his hand called a GoTenna mesh. And basically it's a small transmitter that boosts your cell signal so you can get a text message up to the surface. And Hinkey reached out to the company that makes this and told them that he was using it underground, and this is what he told us about that.
And told them I'm taking these underground, and everybody's ears just popped. Like, wait a minute, we never thought to do this. So how is this even possible? Let's try it out. How can we help? So they started sending me a couple of units, and then been in communication with them ever since, just trying to further the reaches underground.
So this technology is still being developed. It was actually made for emergency communications above the ground. Say there's like a natural disaster and all the communication lines are jammed. But people are now using it for lots of situations, like Trey underground, but also people hiking in rural areas, just anywhere where you can't really get a cell phone signal. So
how soon can this be used in actual rescues?
So this is actually a pretty limited technology right now. For one thing, it's really expensive. It's like $180 for 2 of these devices, and you need a lot more than that to get enough of a relay to send a text message through all of that rock underground. And Anwar Mirza, the cave rescuer who we heard from in the story, he says they'll definitely test it out. He doesn't think they're going to replace any of their current rescue systems with that, but it might be a tool that they use in the future.
All right, Becca, it looks like a lot of fun. Thank you so much for doing that. You did a great job.
Thanks, Joe.